And he did. He called into the police, but they never followed up with him. And he was never interviewed by the police. And this is the same police department who did not once consult their psychology department. Their in-house psychology expert told me that not once was he or his team consulted by the LAPD about bipolar disorder during this time. So you just have kind of a lack of curiosity going on. I attribute it to at the same time this was going on, there was the Chris Dorner manhunt going on in Los Angeles. Chris Dorner was an ex-cop who was fired for reporting excessive force and basically kind of lost his mind and started waged asymmetric warfare on the LAPD and started assassinating people. And he wrote kind of a infamous Facebook manifesto. And this was probably one of the most chaotic weeks in the history of the LAPD. I mean, it's not often that an ex-cop literally wages war against a department and becomes a rogue assassin. That doesn't happen very often. And that was the same week that they were tracking him and ultimately, smoked him out of a cabin in the woods. And so this was the same week that was going on, and I think it's almost certain that had a huge impact.
Oh, yeah. The Donner story was overwhelming. They even shot up a car with a couple of people in it, like 70 bullets or something. They shot up some innocent bystanders. And
Right.
in Las Vegas, he had another home at Rhodes Ranch in Las Vegas. And the cops went there. They knew he wasn't in that house, and they shot up that house with giant bullet holes the size of baseballs. They were shooting kind of grenades at this house or whatever. And then they shut down the whole neighborhood. And when the kids got off the school bus to go home, the cops went to the school bus and walked these kids with rifles, cops holding rifles, walking these kids to their homes. They wouldn't let the parents go to the bus stops to get the kids. This is and you won't find pictures, by the way, of that house with those bullet holes anywhere on the internet. They've been scrubbed off the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole Dorner chapter is an unbelievable story, and there's absolutely LAPD abuses that went on there, just as I document multiple LAPD abuses through their history in the book because it's relevant to the case, because it's important to remember that while I do have requisite respect for police officers and whatnot, the LAPD is historically one of the most corrupt departments in the country, and it's in analyzing this investigation, it's worth noting, some of their past behavior. It was found during this time that they were systematically underreporting violent crimes in the city. There were multiple scandals going on, and one of them was basically fudging the numbers of how many violent crimes are going on. And so when you have a case where they're saying that a suspicious death was an accident, it makes you wonder whether it really was.
So, Jake, what I'm assuming here is she turns up missing, right? So they make a police report. The cops say, well, it's a Skid Row. It's a homeless person practically, mental illness. Yeah, I mean, next job, And stuff didn't really hit the fan until they find this woman's naked body in the water tower.
Right, yeah. I think the case really went into overdrive. First with the surveillance tape, that kind of got the public going on it, and once the public got going on it, that's when the police, they tend to treat cases that involve foreign nationals with a little bit more finesse, and so they had the family come in, and it seems like they were trying to do the right thing. I do question the release of that tape at all. I don't think that tape served any purpose except to stigmatize the victim and lay a foundation for their eventual conclusion, which I believe is likely faulty, or at least not the whole story. But when they discovered the body, it did go into overdrive, but it doesn't really seem like they ever treated it as foul play. It seems like basically that they. You need a lot of evidence to bring a case to a prosecutor. You need, an exorbitant amount of evidence. There's quite a number of cases that go unsolved for which there is, some evidence or even a majority of evidence. But if you don't have an airtight case, you don't bring it to a prosecutor because prosecutors can't prove it unless they have like 99.9 something reason. They have to escape the reasonable doubt. So cops aren't going to bring if cops don't get the killer or whoever it was, whoever was involved. If they can't bring some reasonable conclusion to it, they're not going to bring anything to a prosecutor, and they're going to close the case because they don't want a bunch of open cases, especially one that's as famous as this one. So because, like I said, the two main detectives, Greg Stern and Wallace Tennille, refused to discuss the case. I really had to go around. I had to go out of my way to find any information about what may have actually gone on in that investigation, and I still know very little. I invested years of research only to really find a few scraps that I think are important, but we still need more mobilization to really just get them to – come on, the investigation's closed. Open up your files. Let's look at what happened, unless you have something to hide. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, in some states they would be required to release those files. Here in Florida, you would. Oh boy. Okay. Describe.
Yeah.
I know, and but also too, 90% of these cases they get a confession. That's how these cases go to. They get confessions from a confession.
Right.
Yeah, and if you don't get that, Now, so you should keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Say that when you're talking to the cops. Now, I guess the next thing is describe how they found this body.
Okay, yeah, it's a good question, and it brings me into some of the evidence I found. So, basically, this is one of the more grotesque parts of the case, but it's definitely one of the parts that people kind of gravitate towards. I don't know what that says about us, but the water, people were starting to complain about the water in the Cecil Hotel. There's full-time residents there, and then there's people that are just coming. So it's basically both an apartment complex and a hotel for travelers. So everyone was complaining, basically, and a couple actually filed a class action lawsuit against them. It was a mess for them, but they didn't know what was going on. It was just all of a sudden the water was just gross and had sediment in it, and it was dark. And so basically they finally said, hey, maybe there's something wrong with the water. And so they sent a maintenance worker up to check. They have a gravity-based propulsion water system. So the water tank on the roof pumps the water from street level and then down into the hotel. And what he claims is that he deactivated the alarm system. There's only two ways to get to the roof: the fire escape and the main stairwell. He says that there's no way she would have been able to get on to the roof without the alarm going off. So he claims that they deactivated the alarm. He went onto the water tank, climbed up there, and that he said the lid was open. And when he looked in, there he saw, now these are his words, he says he saw an Asian woman in the tank. Now, I don't know from his vantage point really how he's making that estimation that he was able to make out her ethnicity. This was a body that had been decomposing for 2 weeks in the water. There was skin slippage. I find that statement highly problematic, but we'll move on from that.
Let me ask you a question. The man who made that statement, is he the only person who would have the key and the access to get through that?
No, he's not. The security guards would have as well, but yeah, this man Santiago Lopez, and he testified to this in the civil deposition, as did the manager, and he says the body was floating face up, which is also interesting because in the vast majority of drowning cases where the person drowned and wasn't placed there afterwards, the bodies are almost always floating face down. You can read any number of reports about this. So right there, you have two immediate weird things. How is he immediately knowing her ethnicity, and then why is the body floating face up? Now, so I did some research into Santiago Lopez. I really wanted to find him and talk to him. I couldn't believe that no one had interviewed this guy, or really anyone from the hotel. So what I found out is that I hired like a private investigator to kind of dig into this for me, because I'm not like a bulldog when it comes to these things. Like I'm too like, I don't know. I needed someone to really just dig in and say, screw this. I'm gonna find out who this guy is and what he's doing. So this guy wasn't able to find Santiago Lopez, but what he did find is Santiago Lopez's half-brother. And he talked to him on the phone, and what Santiago Lopez's half-brother found out, or so what he said was that Santiago all of a sudden left the country with his family soon after that case, and that he was given a large sum of money. Okay, he doesn't know where he got the money from, but he knows that Santiago just all of a sudden kind of disappeared with his family to Mexico, and was given a large sum of money. So that's what we know about him right now. I hired a Mexican private investigator to find him in Mexico, and he was not able to do so. So as of right now, the man who found the body, and in my opinion, most likely probably perjured himself about the way he found the body, is off the grid, off the map, and was given a large sum of money, presumably by the hotel. I don't know who else would have. I mean, that's a reasonable assumption to make, that you get the civil deposition, and then you get the guy out of there because you don't want anyone else talking to him, right? But that's what I know about him. I don't think the lid was open. Because I spoke to a first responder he was a first responder with the LAPD at that time. He's now chief of police in a town in Wisconsin. So this is a guy who's worked his way up, and really, and doesn't really have a reason to lie about this at this point. He's not even with the LAPD anymore. He says he was one of the first people to show up. All the tanks were sealed. All the tanks were sealed up. They were closed. Now, is it possible that Lopez just found the body with the lid open and then closed it and waited for the police to arrive? Possibly. I'm sorry. Like, if I'm in his shoes, if I find a dead body, I'm not touching anything. Like, I'm leaving everything the way it was. And I just don't. I don't know. I don't see him closing it back up. So, not to get too deep into the weeds here, but it's very problematic how the body was found, and the fact that we have so little information about it, to me, makes it extra suspicious.
Let me ask you this, Santiago. Did he first when he first discovered this body? Does he immediately call the police, or did he talk to hotel management?
It's a good question. We don't know that either. We don't know how much time elapsed. We don't know who he told first. We don't know if, say, the management found out about this and then sat on it for a while and figured out what to do before calling the police. Now, the reason this is significant, and another point of suspicion for me, is that it turns out that during this time, the Cecil Hotel management was finalizing a multi-$100 million deal with the largest real estate firm in the world, CBRE. CBRE was acquiring the group that owns the Cecil Hotel. It was a massive investment. So this deal was finalized like a couple days after the body was found. So I think it's reasonable to ask what kind of incentive did they had for revealing what happened. Did they have an incentive for delaying the discovery of the body? What role did management have, and really what was the timeline of what went on? I tried really hard to get more conclusive answers for this, but it's gonna take a little bit more pushing to kind of figure this stuff out. I don't understand why there seems to be this collusion between the LAPD and the Cecil Hotel management. I spoke to one former insider, a woman who worked for the LAPD, and she claims that she spoke to some private investigators that worked on the case, and that they believe basically that there was some kind of deal or something being worked out, that basically Cecil Hotel management was meeting with LAPD detectives in a highly unusual way around this time. So, I don't want to make accusations without knowing the facts. I'm just kind of trying to paint a picture for you of how weird and suspicious this timeline was. And I would desperately love to interview any of the Cecil Hotel management people, but they are completely silent. They won't speak, just the same way as the LAPD won't speak, just as the family won't speak. So all three nodes of information have just been completely sealed off.
Now, the Santiago Lopez deposition, did you get a chance to read that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you did. Okay.